Welcome, everybody. I think we'll call this PMP meeting to order at 1:01. So thanks for your attendance today. And we'll move into the agenda. Any added items to the agenda? Not seeing any, we'll move on to a motion to adopt the agenda as presented. Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Walsh. I move that we adopt the agenda for the Policies and Priorities Committee regular meeting for Monday, June 5th, 2023 as presented.
Thank you. All in favor? That's carried. So we're moving on to adoption of previous minutes, and we've changed the process somewhat based on our new governance training. So I'll just kind of read through what we're doing, just for those who are tuning in online. So we'll be seeking approval by general consent. If there's no objections, the minutes are adopted by general consent and no vote is needed. If there is an objection, a member opposing adoption states the reason for the objection, and council would then vote on an amendment as necessary before adopting the minutes as amended. So I'm going to ask, is there any objection to adopt the May 1st council meeting minutes as they are presented? Seeing none, we will accept them as they are presented then. So moving into our presentations and delegations, see that we have 6 delegations and reports today, so we're kind of trying to keep everybody to their 15-minute allotment. For the first up, we have our CMP quarterly report, and I see that Sergeant Greg Beach is going to be here. Welcome.
How's everyone today? Get enough pancakes? Served but did not partake. Purchased but not consumed. Perfect. Okay, so my name's Greg. I'm the Sergeant's Operations NCO here in Olds. And Warren asked me to come and speak today, kind of give you a snapshot of what's happening now. We have the municipal report up there in front of you. I mean, that's based on data that was several months old kind of thing, right? So the more up-to-date stuff would be obviously the fires in Alberta, and we continue to support other detachments and their detachment areas with sending members up to give them relief or the extra boots on the ground that they need. These are based on what we can afford to give out without affecting the local, like our police presence here. So we look at the schedule, balance it out so that we can still provide the coverage that we're responsible for here, while also helping the wildfire folks all over the province. So we've had members out to Drayton Valley, Fire Up is Fort Vermilion, helping out there. So we'll continue to do that if we're able to maintain our services here. So Constable Price, he's our community resource officer. He continues to do some really great work in our community. He's working with the schools. He's worked with seniors groups, providing fraud presentations, pretty much anything that comes down the pipe that our local groups are looking for presentations on. We've tasked him with doing it, and he's doing a really good job. He's currently away on a mountain bike course, so what that's going to give us down the road is we've got 2 other members, so 3 in total on the course this week. That'll give us 4 in our detachment that are trained on mountain bikes, which then will give us the ability to kind of out to those venues that happen during the summer, have a little more police presence a little further into those venues with the bikes and whatnot, right? So just a little more police presence and waving the flag, if you will. He's also working with Olds College, so we've identified that obviously in September when the college kids comes back, there's an elevated level of mischief that occurs, if you will. So what we've done is that he's going to embed himself into their orientation program and pretty much provide them, this is what Olds is, this is what the RCMP is, here's the road, stay on it, deviate from this course, and this is what can happen. So we're hoping that this is gonna, just a matter of education, right? And a lot of the folks that come to the college, they're not from here, so, you know, they, just to build that respect for this is our town. And if we were to go to your town, we'd respect your town, so you're gonna respect ours, right? So he's working on that. What else I got here? Our high-risk offenders, we continue to do checks on them to keep them in check. We've done some joint operations with our bylaw, Sergeant Paul Wright and his team. You know, we continue to work with them in doing traffic initiatives. If there's any bylaws that need enforcement and assistance from our side of it, because the people that they're trying to enforce the bylaws on are less than cordial to them, so then we work together to make sure that they can do their job safely as well. So, and the only other thing that I've got, I mean, our members continue to engage themselves in the community. We've got guys and girls that coach hockey, they coach volleyball. Constable Gabriel took the team that he's coaching up to I think it was the national level, right? Unfortunately, they weren't successful, but I guess this is the farthest the team ever got. So, and he's a really good resource for us, and did a great job there. And then, you know, members continue just to kind of quietly donate their time throughout the year. So, do you guys have any questions for me?
No questions? Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Walsh. I do have a question on the staffing with regard, and I don't know if you can answer this question or not, but I noticed that there's one long-term assignment to another RCMP unit. Is that what you were talking about with the fires, or is that a different unit?
No, that's a totally separate unit altogether. So that member that you're talking about there, he was seconded to our general investigation section for SAD, our area. And so he's been there for a year, and they're in the process now of deciding, applications have been put in, and that's the selection process of where they're going to be, who they're going to be selecting to fill that vacant spot in the GIS section.
Okay.
So if the member from Olds is successful with that, then we'll look to our staffing to fill that vacancy.
Okay. Can I- Supplemental then?
Sure. I don't see anybody else
All right,
chopping.
thank you. Just a supplemental question for that then. While he is working for a different unit and he's not working in Olds, is he paid by that different unit, or do we cover his wage?
No, I do believe that would all be taken care of through the GIS section. Yeah, different, what we call a collator, right? So the cost down the road, well above my pay grade, they sort all that stuff out. So billable hours versus hours here on the ground and whatnot. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Because it does create a void for us when we do lose somebody, so.
Yep, absolutely.
thank you.
Yep.
Okay, Councillor Cummings, then Councillor Daly, then Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, as soon as the first question gets asked, that's the icebreaker. Sergeant, I got a statistical question here. In the charts that you provided to us under motor vehicle situations there, I think, what page is that? Sorry, 15? There's injuries, motor vehicle collisions involving injuries. I'm wondering if you know this off the top of your head, because you've got us all memorized, I know.
Oh, absolutely.
If included in
short
there,
memory.
there have been any, or if there's a historical trend or knowledge of any kind about pedestrian vehicle injuries. We've had a lot of concerns raised by our citizens about road safety with pedestrians. And I've asked a couple of different folks about this, and there's no record that they can tell me of any sort of pedestrian vehicle accidents in Olds in modern history.
Okay.
So I'm just wondering if you do actually keep track of that separately from just generally an injury involving a motor vehicle, or an injury involving a motor vehicle and a pedestrian.
Yeah. So the way the stats are normally laid out here, you've got injury accidents where the two vehicles involved, people in the vehicle are injured to whatever extent. Then you just have your regular property damage where it's just like your regular fender bender, and no one's injured. But we do track the pedestrian versus vehicle or vehicle versus pedestrian collisions that happen here. And if we're looking at that, it doesn't look like there's been any. So it's fair to say that we haven't had any for quite some time. So that's a good thing. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no worries.
Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Walsh. Sergeant Gary, is it, or Carey?
Greg,
Greg.
hey, you works.
Hey, you. Sergeant, hey, you.
That's right.
Nice to meet you, and thank you for your report. My question is there any, like, up-and-coming kind of hot spots that are out there that the detachment's dealing with in our community that we should be made aware of, or?
Yeah, so we've got, I would say Rotary Park would be one, and then in behind Cow Palace there where we get complaints in regards to motor vehicle traffic issues where people are speeding, revving their engines, doing donuts and whatnot, and that's one of those joint forces that we're doing, that we work with bylaw with, right? So enforcing our Motor Vehicle Act as well as any other infractions that we can come up with or dole out. So this summer, I know that Constable Price is going to be kind of hammering those spots down. And a lot of it, I think sometimes is the kids need a place to go, but they just need to know where to go. And the places that they're going aren't where we want them. So it'll just be an education piece. And, you know, they'll kind of self-identify if they want the coupon program, tickets and whatnot. So, yeah.
Mr. Wilson, or Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Walsh, and through you to Sergeant Beach, and thanks for the information. I have a question or two quick ones. Can you just talk to this RTOC to the extent you can and what that looks like in the real world briefly? And just an update on body-worn cameras for the Olds detachment.
Yep, so our talk is, so that will be, it's usually staffed by sergeants, NCOs, and what that gives the ability is the NCOs that, so for myself, Warren, and then the other corporals to have that unfettered time off to kind of recuperate. What our talk is when we're sleeping, they're the ones that are answering the calls if our members have anything that's pressing that they need an NCO to question, or even if there's say a police chase, right? So they contact our talk, let them know what's going on, and then they become the supervisors for those situations, right? That's all out of Edmonton, and that's fully staffed 24/7. Even in the event that there's no NCOs on during the day, the members still have that access to speak with an NCO at any time. So, and your second question was in relation to? Yep, so the body-worn cameras, they're going through their testing phases. They've got their pilot projects that are out, and I'm not aware of any specific date of when they're going to be coming out with them. All I know is that there's the procurement process that they need to go through, and then the testing, and making sure that what we're getting is good quality and going to last us a little bit of time.
Thank you.
Yep.
Go ahead, Councillor Daly.
A supplemental to our conversation before Sergeant Hayu.
Thanks for
So-
playing.
We, you talk about motor vehicles and that kind of hotspot. In the past, we've heard lots about the personal property thefts and so forth. And how's that playing out? Are we seeing a decline in that? Or are we still seeing kind of plateaued? What's the?
Yeah, so we've had I would say in the month of May, we've had a bit of an uptick with the suspicious person calls, and we can directly relate that. There's three folks that have kind of found Olds, and we've identified who they are, and so we're kind of pushing on them and making sure that they're abiding by the rules. And also, we've had one, I guess, not a repeat offender, but a high-risk offender that has been known to do property crime and stuff like that, and he's been released. And so we're just kind of monitoring and seeing what we're able to do with that. So in these events where things become, I don't want to say they go to a fever pitch, but we have resourcing and whatnot that we can lean on. We have our GIS sections, we have our crime reduction units, and things like that we can reach out to and, you know, apply the appropriate pressure in the right place. Yeah.
Councillor Blatz, go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Walsh. And my question is somewhat similar for Sergeant Gregg. I noticed with the property crimes, like they are down January to March from 2022 to 2023. Now, do you suspect, reading some of the things on Olds Community Watch and some of the social media platforms, do you suspect that they're all being reported to you?
So we always encourage, regardless of how small the crime is, it should always be reported to us, because without those stats, we can't go to district and say, hey, we need a few more members, or hey, we'd like to create a special unit to kind of address these things. And without those stats, that doesn't give us a whole lot of bite, if you will, right? So, but there's also an onus on the community that, you know, it's your property, you need to take care of it. You know, the days of leaving your Trek bike out front of your house are, I don't want to say they're gone, but they're fleeting, right? So you work hard for your things, lock things up, right?
So then we should really encourage our citizens and our general public to report any type of what they might deem as suspicious behavior.
Yep.
So that it could be
absolutely.
monitored.
Yep, because what ends up happening is that we're not everywheres, right? So we rely on our communities to be the eyes and the ears for us. And if they see something that doesn't look right, then, you know, do your own little sneak and peek, if you will, make your logical deduction, and if you think that the police need to know about it, then by all means phone us in, or phone it in, because that could be the missing piece to something that we're working on, right? So,
Thank you for that.
yep, you're welcome.
Not seeing any more questions. Well, thank you, Sergeant Gregg, for
All
your
right.
time today.
Thank you very
It's
much.
Most informative.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson. Yes.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Walsh. I make the motion that the Olds RCMP fourth quarter report be accepted as presented for information.
Thank you for that. All in favor? Assuming motion's carried. Can't. Okay, we have a delegation, Hope for Mountain View Kids Society. I assume your name is Richard, and Joy, I do know.
Yes, I was going to say Joy's
I'm
probably
not
known
Richard, definitely.
way better than I am.
Okay,
You would normally get to see my wife's beautiful face, but today she's volunteered me to do it. So, regardless of the outcome, I'm going to say it was well received to my wife. We're here today just to refresh everybody as to who we are and what we do in the community, and also to hopefully at the end put a bit of a shameful pitch for our 10-year gala coming up. So, Rich Nicholson, I'm a volunteer director for Hope for MVC Kids. And I apologise for the accent. I was hoping for some kind of closed captioning, but do I?
And
Yeah.
I'm Joy Caven. I'm the IT director for Hope for MVC Kids, new as of December.
So just a brief of Hope for MVC, of who we are and what we do. So we're a non-profit CRA registered charity, and we were formed 10 years ago in 2013 by my wife and her friend over a large glass of wine. Our daughter was in need. She was born very prematurely, and due to that she was born with some medical needs, and one of those was identified as a therapy pool for Hope, because she needed exercise and that, and we were travelling every day into the city of Calgary to the Children's Hospital to go into their therapy pool there. And as you could imagine, that was quite costly and time consuming. And it was kind of put to us about doing a fundraiser to purchase the pool for ourselves. The town of Carstairs, where it first started, came together and helped to raise the funds for that pool. And there was some excess money left over, and it was like, what do we do with it? So it was a pay it forward kind of a thing, and that's how it kind of got started, along with dragging people in that we knew never say no to anything. So that's how the initial board was started. Our mission and vision has always been based on a foundation of compassion, and as I said, we strive to pay it forward, supporting families with children in medical need across Mountain View County, and the vision is to support families with children in medical need.
Sure. We have a number of programs that families can apply under. Program 1 can assist if a local child is hospitalized or admitted. The program can assist with car parking, meals, fuel, sibling care. If it's a long-term admission, there is potential for additional support such as rent or mortgage utility assistance. Our program number 2 can assist a local child that needs adaptive equipment for home or school that is not covered by any other sources. Our program number 3 can assist a local child that requires home adoption due to illness or disability that is not covered by other sources. That one's actually a very expensive one. Sometimes those home adoptions can be in the tens of thousands. Yeah. Program number 4 can assist local child who requires therapy such as counseling, private OT or PT, mental health needs, alternative therapy not covered by health insurance or other sources. If you've seen any of our social media coverage, we did actually post someone recently did some equine therapy, which is not necessarily recognized by all benefit programs. So we did some equine therapy for a young local child, and she's having a lot of success with it, so we covered that. Program number 5 is a program that can assist a local child that requires prescription support not covered by health insurance and other sources. And program number 6 can assist families with support, advocacy, information. Navigating a child's illness or diagnosis can be very overwhelming. Due to the personal journeys of many on the board, we have been where those families have been. We can assist the families with understanding and advice on where to find additional resources or support. So that's our kind of non-monetary support that we offer as well.
So to be eligible for support from Hope for MVC Kids, we need, in all of the programs, we need supporting documentation from a medical professional. So we don't just have a family come to us and say, oh, we'd like an adaptive stroller, or we'd like the bathroom doors widening, or whatever it is. We have to have supporting documentation from a medical professional to support that. And the other big part is you have to reside within the boundaries of Mountain View County. It's a little bit of a stumbling block that we've come across, to be honest, with some of the local towns where they go, but you don't cover, I'm just going to say Didsbury or Carstairs, and we have to correct them. You live within Mountain View County. We support the whole of Mountain View County. So it's not just siloed to a town or village. If you reside within Mountain View County, we can support your child from 0 to age 18 years. Some of the conditions we support, I'm not going to go through that list. Sure you don't want to hear me drone on and on and on. How we came up with the list there, we battled for a long time to get CRA registration because there's, as far as we are aware to this point still, no other organisation within Canada like us. We don't have a financial component, so we don't ask families how much you earn. We ask the families, what does your child need? What does your family need? CRA didn't particularly like that at first, and now we are considered a health organisation. They asked us what conditions we cover, and so Lisa went to the Alberta Children's Hospital, sat down with the social workers and doctors and nurses there, and made this list, and it's not an exhaustive list there, of the conditions that are covered in the hospital. The list really does go on and on and on, so we cover everything, hopefully. We distribute the funds not directly to the families. We will pay the supplier directly. So if a child needs a adaptive chair, even with the minivan conversions, we pay the supplier directly, and then we can 100% say where the money has gone. We can account for the money, and also we then take away any tax implications for the families who are receiving benefits from us. If it's meals and parking and fuel, for parking we'll pay directly to the hospital for the pass. If it's accommodation, we pay Ronald McDonald House or the hotel directly, and we also supply fuel cards and credit card, like prepaid credit cards, so that we can again account for the money, and we can also see where that money's gone. So to date, we are 85 plus applications over the last 10 years, totaling over $200,000. I know we're way over.
I think we're over 250.
Application money that's gone to the town of Olds, so families that reside within the corporate limits of Olds, $50,713. As it says at the bottom of the page there, if you go to our website, you can see the stories of hope. These are families that we've helped over the last 10 years. A number of the families live here in Olds, and as I've said, a lot of them also live within Mountain View County. Take the time to please take a look at them. Those are the faces that sell hope for MVC kids, not this.
Oh, you do.
As much as say I'm young and cute, them days are gone.
And can I just add, like, this isn't an exhaustive list of the people we help in Olds as well, because some families choose to keep their stories private, and these are the ones that have given us permission to share on social media.
So the growth prediction for the next 3 years, from something that's just started as a group of friends really together trying to, I think our first few years was like $10,000 if that. We're now projecting for 2023 to 2024, $140,000 we'll need in order to service the applications, and then 24 to 25 we'll need $182,000 plus in order to cover the applications that we have coming in. We have been the fortunate recipients of a number of awards, the Premier's Council in 2019 for excellence in the community, making a significant contribution to a barrier-free community. So because of the work that we do in order to make a child's and a family's home accessible to them, i.e. ramps, door widening, tracks, accessible bathrooms, we were recognised there. The Northern Lights volunteer recognition, again that was 2021. The board is completely volunteer. Nobody within our board draws any money from the things that we do. And I can't stress that enough. A lot of hours go into Hope for MVC Kids, and not a cent gets drawn from the board. We also, for a number of years, we've received the Alberta Reader's Choice Award, and Lisa, our founder, in 2021 was recognised as a CTV-inspired Albertan. Big plug, Hope.
Yes,
Big
yeah.
plug for the Hope.
So we, our big fundraising event coming up is in November. We've called it A Decade of Hope. And some of you have probably seen Martin Kerr in person before, and we were very excited. He's actually coming. He's going to do, he's going to be our entertainment. Willow Lane Barn also came in as a partner, and they've donated their space. And if you've ever been anywhere where Rajpaska Catering has done the meal, that's who's cooking, so it's worth it even just for the food. But November 25th, we have tickets available for sale online. As the IT director, I got it all set up, so you can put in any credit card Anybody? Anybody? You can put in a credit card, it'll say yes, everybody. But we definitely encourage as many people that are interested to be part of it. We're going to have live auctions, silent auctions, Decade of Hope. We're going to have some families that have been supported by our foundation, by our charity, presenting as well. And then we're going to recognize some people that have been volunteering with the organization. It's going to be a great time, good food, and we have opportunity for sponsorship, ticket sales, and just promotion within the community.
As always, like any organisation, we always looking for volunteers to help spread the word in the
Volunteer
community.
director?
Yes, as the director of volunteers. Make my job easier, please. And that's kind of a short list there of roles that we're looking to get covered with volunteer opportunities. As it says there, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it, and thanks for listening to us today.
Well, thank you for your time. I'm going to open it up to questions from council. Mayor Dahl.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Walsh. This is not a question, it's just some sharing note with you. I would be more than happy to share this with the municipal area partners, mayors of the other 5 municipalities.
I appreciate
And
it.
hopefully you'll get some really good feedback.
Super, thank you.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Walsh, and through you to Richard and Joy, and thanks for the presentation. Just a question, it may have been in the content and maybe I overlooked it, but what are your other sources of funding? You referenced your major event coming up in November, and I hope that's a great success, but what are your sources of revenue or funding to make the program work?
So for our operational costs, we apply for funding for hopefully I'm going to say this, the health grant from the county. We apply for that. There's also a number of different grants that do come up during the year that we apply for, and that's solely to cover the operational costs of things like that. Fundraising wise, I could say when we do a fundraising event, every single cent of that fundraised money goes directly to families. We have our costs for operational covered through grants.
And so Smile Cookies is a
Yep.
good example. We were the old Smile Cookie recipient. We also have corporate donors, especially into kind of the fall Christmas season. There's a couple of main charities that people like to donate to, and Hope for MBC Kids is definitely one of them.
Any more questions? Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, I just had one more, so when you get your applications, how many people do you turn away because you just can't help them? You don't have funds or ability?
To say, I don't think we've turned any
We
away.
haven't. The only people that we've unfortunately had to direct to other places is anybody outside of Mountain View County. As anybody that's resided within Mountain View County that has applied for support, and I touch wood when I say this, we have not turned anybody away yet.
Not seeing any more questions. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Joy. All our best to Lisa also.
Thank you.
I miss her. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Dahl.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your time. I so move that council will accept the delegation from the Hope for Mount View Kids Society for their presentation today.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Okay, next delegation, Fair Trade. Ms. Bev Daves, a regular. Thank you for being here, Bev.
Thank you. I always enjoy coming and letting you know what's going on. But before I start my presentation, I would really like to thank you for nominating me for the Queen's Jubilee, Platinum Jubilee Medal. I was honored to be nominated and thrilled to be awarded with it. So thank you very much for that. I don't know if it's appropriate to wear a hat in council chambers, but I just brought it as a prop to match my first slide, and I will take it off. Can you put the slide up? So there. It's not your banana. It's not my banana. I have now another one too. Anyways, so this March, my colleague Ray New Matthew and I were invited to join the Camino producer trip. It was a trip that they put on for some of their investors, and we were delighted to go. Just a sec. So you'll notice that we did deposit some owls around Dominican Republic, and the sheet of paper that I gave you, sharing accolades of where the cacao from Dominican Republic ends up in our town. And so those are some of the local businesses that support Camino in particular. All right. So fair trade chocolate, just a quick reminder, it supports a living wage, it supports gender equity, no child exploitation slavery, long-term contracts, biodiversity, and third-party auditing with the Fair Trade International logo. I'm going to flip through a lot of these slides quickly. There is a lot, but I just thought you could look at them on your own time. But you'll see in this first, a little bit up, the cacao pods grow right out of the stem of the trees. When you open them up, they are full of beans. Next one, please. So they are kind of football size pods that are a bit thinner than a football, different varieties. Okay. And this is what it looks like inside. This is from a super tree. So this is a very productive cacao pod holding 42 beans. Most of them hold 34. The white gelatinous material on the outside tastes a bit like mango. It's something I always wondered about. Okay. So these are 2 videos you can just watch on your own time. And here's a picture of some farmers. The person on the right, in the left picture, is the person who was the father of my host family that I got to stay with for a few nights. And you'll notice that the other 2 have machetes. That when we saw people walking around the villages, they're carrying machetes and bags, and they're off to harvest some cacao. The picture on the right is us participating. So we got to participate in the whole process, from harvesting to going to see it getting put into sea cans to be shipped to Switzerland. So this is some of the beans that we collected, and I'm going to go back to this later because these are our beans, and we added it to one of the batches that the farmers brought in. In one picture on the left is one of the investors from New York. On the right, in the middle is one of the co-op managers, and Kelly from Camino getting our beans signed into the batch. And then the bottom is the CEO of Pronatec, who is the company that makes Camino chocolate bars in Switzerland. We got to see the democratic cooperative structure. So that's the farmers get together in democratic cooperatives to put their beans together so that they can have higher volume to compete with multinational corporations. And we got to see 2, Conocado and Yacao. So next one. Again, there's another owl and sheet there. Okay. So this is kind of quickly the structure. There's the headquarters that is responsible for marketing, sets policy that they, based on feedback they get from farmers. They do training and they manage the certifications. Under them are regional farmers associations from regions around the country, and they each have a fermenting and drying station in their region. They have nurseries. They are the ones who give reports to what the community needs for the premiums that they earn. And in one, the cooperative called Yacao, they reported that 1 in 10 farmers are sent as reps to the annual meetings. So there is very good representation of farmers. Conocado has a processing facility. We weren't allowed to take pictures, but they actually do value added to the beans, where they make cacao nibs, chocolate powder, and liqueur. Liquor, it's called. It's just when you grind up the beans and it makes kind of like a peanut butter consistency product. So, and the headquarters also picks up the beans from the farmers. The minimum price, I just want to differentiate. There's a minimum price that Fair Trade guarantees and a premium. So the minimum price for cacao last year was $2,400 US per metric ton. That goes to the farmer. And then on top of that, there's a premium of $240 US that is giving to the cooperative to be used in the community. And then another $300 if it's organic. The premiums go to communities, basically on education, health, and infrastructure. 70% of it goes to nurseries, trainings, the regional fermenting facilities, business loans. Some people noted that they would be charged 60% interest from coyotes in the country that they borrowed money from. So these ones are a lot more reasonable. Climate change adaptation. This year there's a drought there, and because of the different climate or changing climate, it's becoming difficult to forecast when they can deliver their beans. One of the things that Conacato told us is that in the 80s, the Dominican Republic had really low quality beans, and the only customer was the United States. They would send 90% of unfermented beans to the States for $240 below the New York Stock Exchange price. In '88, they began to organize and form their cooperative and start selling through the fair trade system. And by 1995, they had a technically developed cocoa sector with a high-quality product that is well-known and well-positioned and sold all over the world in countries like Canada, including Canada. They're enjoying a diversification of income as wives are becoming involved and women in the country. Their living standards are better. They have community development, which is holding government and other organizations accountable. Pilar, we were told a story about in the community, say if the RCMP or hospital or some government organization wants some of the money, they have to report on how they used it. So by doing that, they're holding those organizations accountable, which doesn't always happen. They're also preserving their environment with a sustainable resource and conventional cacao production that often contributes to deforestation. Okay, so we'll just go through. There's a fermenting process. This is called the waterfall, where the white covered beans are put in the top boxes, and every few days they're shoveled into the next layer down. Okay, then they're put on the drying tables, and they're there for another 10 days or so. And that thing on the right is called a guillotine, and they put beans in there and slice them in half to see how many are fermented so that they know when the fermenting process is finished. This is the bag method. This is where we added our beans to. Okay, so the cooperative picks up the beans and then they come down this chute. Okay, next one. So the chute is on the left. Once they're in those bags, they're stored like in the middle for a few days, and then they're aerated by the bottom opens on that bag and empties into the next bag, and then they're put to sit again. So they do that for about 7 to 10 days. Then they're taken to the drying tables. Those beans have to be moved back and forth every 2 hours for 7 to 10 days. And boy, it was hot in there. Yep. All right. They kind of have a very strong balsamic vinegar smell. It's very cool to just be there and be part of the whole process. Okay. Then after they're dried, they're put in bags and shipped off to in a sea can. Okay. And then we just took a picture. We just happened to see a ship. So I don't know if any beans were on that ship, but there they go. Okay. We were able to stay with host families in the Dominican Republic, and that was a treat. Okay. This is my host family. The man on the right, it was the father of the host family. The woman on the left is his sister, and the one in the middle is his 106-year-old mother, who had 18 children and over 200 grandchildren. And she was just, she wouldn't be walking to town, but she was spry and welcoming and lovely, just lovely. This is where Renew stayed, and that's the mother and her son. And so this is Renew's, one of her families. Renew was there. She was invited because she has become one of Camino's social media influencers. So anyway, so she was taking awesome pictures the whole time, promoting Camino products. So this is the house where I stayed. So here's some benefits. Children are not being used as farm workers. All of these kids are going to school. The guy on the right was amazing. He helped me with my Spanish because everybody else spoke so fast. He helped me and made sure I was saying the correct thing. And he is learning French. I'm still keeping in touch with him through WhatsApp. Okay. One of the benefits that we were told by one of the co-op members was people selling through the fair trade system have cement floors. People who are not generally don't. They have the life of a person who is not selling through the fair trade system. Looks like the farmer getting up at 6 in the morning, going and harvesting some pods. Then his wife comes at 10, cuts them open, brings him breakfast, and she takes the beans out, delivers them to a grocery store or a food market where she trades beans for food for the day. If she doesn't have enough beans for that day, she has to go start credit, so it can create a spiral of debt for that family. Yeah. Okay, so here's a half a kilometer of road that the Yakau Cooperative made. There was a part of the road that was would be washed out whenever the rainy season came, and that's when the harvest is. So in the Dominican, the government puts a lot of priorities on people who have a lot of money, and so this road was not a priority, and so the cooperative just got people together and they made their own road. And up the mountain are a lot of cacao farmers, so they couldn't get their products to market. So that was a road that they built with the premiums. This is a community hall that we had a party at, and that was also built with premiums that the community gets. Okay. Biodiversity, the cacao grows amongst a variety of other trees, often on the slope of a steep mountain. Yeah, lots of diversity. This is a nursery that would be in one of the regional stations, and so fair trade farmers are able to come and buy new plants for $5, whereas if you're not in the fair trade system on the open market, they're $12. You can also bring, so the person who had that super tree pod can bring some of his trees to the nursery and they'll graft them for him, and so he can replace plants with really good trees. And this is one of the really cool things, and one of the highlights of fair trade. This is the supply chain. We were all together. We were all together often for the week. So there's farmers, cooperative workers, processors, investors, consumers, and the person who makes the chocolate bars. And we were all together, all talking at a variety of meetings and get-togethers. Okay. I would like to go back to our beans. You can stay there. So we put our beans into that batch on March the 30th. On April 20th, Yakau sent us a message saying that our beans had now been through the fermenting and drying process and told us the batch number and sent us a picture. On May the 12th, they told us that the beans that we had given them were in container 65 and on their way to Switzerland. So the accountability is obvious. Okay, so this is Pilar's farm. I don't know if I did add a letter to your package reminding you that we did have a cacao producer here when we helped to host the Calgary Canadian Fair Trade Network conference. And Pilar was the cacao producer who came. And he came to Olds and Olds High School. Well, we were excited to be able to go visit Pilar. And so all of the vegetables and fruits that you see on that table are grown on his farm. All of them could be sold through the fair trade system because he is already certified for his cacao. One of the things he said his bananas are really good for is when he brings workers in to work and to harvest, that's how he feeds them. They can eat bananas, and that supplements whatever lunch they bring. One of the things he told us about was his cooperative in his region has a kind of a semi-committee that also does projects. And they knew of some women in the area that wanted to make chocolate bars. So value added is always good for people in the country. It is good for their economy. So they built a facility for these women to make chocolate. They brought in a chocolatier from Belgium to teach them how to make chocolate. And this is a Dominican Republic chocolate bar that is sold mostly probably in the Dominican Republic, but we all stocked up on them to bring them to Canada. So if you ever see that, you know where they come from. There's Renew with Pilar at the conference that we hosted. And now the next page. When he did his presentation, it was very exciting for us to see how memorable his trip to Olds was as well. I don't know if you can recognize, but in the top left corner, that's Olds College Brewery, And during the conference, they made their seasonal Christmas brew with fair trade Camino cocoa and reciprocal coffee, and Pilar is in there. On the right is when Renew did her chocolate showdown, and he came to some of the viewings that we had in the theater. Bottom is him doing some tasting. There's Doug Coley from the paper doing some tasting at Nutters. And on the right was an invitation to the Cocoa Tree community event. And so this presentation was to about 20 people, our delegation, and a variety of people from the cooperative. So I just thought that was cool. We were highlighted in, I don't know what town, I think it was Yamasa. All right. One of the things that we would like to do is, and I think this is part of the letter that I sent, is we are going to be entering our 15th year as a fair trade town next year. And so we would love to bring a cacao producer again to Olds. We were building up such good momentum that year. We had the college making beer, we had Renew making bonbons, the cacao producer coming, and then COVID hit, and it kind of put a quick stop to that, and we'd just like to build up that momentum again and celebrate getting into our 15th year of being a fair trade town. I also would like to start looking at doing a community trip, and I'm talking to Camino about that, and anyways, trying to get some people to go over and see where their chocolate comes from. So if that is kind of me rushing through this. This is, while we were not, we were still busy during COVID. We have built up a lot of inventory in a lot of our businesses when we weren't doing events. And so we have some new businesses that are supporting fair trade. Our Flames is one of them, and Uptown or Oldstown Square. I have started a company called Your Fair Lady, and that's available at the Oldstown Market. And basically, it wasn't really a way of making a lot of money, of course, but just getting out products that aren't getting picked up by other stores, and so giving them a boost, and maybe other stores will take them on. So that's part of what that's about. And I think there's one more slide. Oh, yeah, some of the things that we have done. So Camino, Black Stag Bakery, Our Flames Lounge and Restaurant has picked up a lot. You can now get fair trade bananas at Sobeys. I might have told you that before, but that is awesome. Yeah, International Fair Trade Day. We gave fair trade roses to Cocoa Tree, Our Flames, and Trax. When you go to Trax, you can get wine, coffee, and sugar there. Community open mics always served. NDP Constituency Association served fair trade tea at all of their events. And the Fair Trade Olds Committee served fair trade tea, coffee, and sugar at the political forum this year. So, thank you. And yeah, it's exciting to be out and doing some things again. Oh, and I brought chocolate.
This is always the good part, you're right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bev, for that presentation. It's hard to believe it's been 15 years.
I know.
It's gone by so fast.
Yes, yes.
Questions for Bev? Mayor Dahl.
Thank you very much for your presentation. It was absolutely wonderful to hear the update from 15 years ago, because you were strong and hard there. Are the students still involved in fair trade at the high school?
Yes, yeah, definitely. We do our Fair Trade Fridays every Friday. It's all of the organization or clubs and stuff, leadership, interact, use fair trade at their events. And one of the things we'd like to do is we hope to have a diversity day again next year, where we bring speakers in again for our school that represent different cultures, walks of life, things like that. And we would love to have the cacao producer as our keynote speaker.
I'm going to go Councillor Blatz and Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Walsh, and through you to Bev. Thank you so much for the very good presentation here. I just want to comment on how impressed I am with the list of local businesses that are participating in the fair trade products in our community. I think that's just tremendous.
Great, thanks. Yeah, it is exciting.
It's very exciting.
Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Walsh, and through you to Bev. And yes, Bev, thanks for the presentation. Just a question, when you were in the Dominican there, how real, how visible is the threat of deforestation? I'm very concerned about the supply of the cocoa bean, so.
Yeah. From the places that we went to, the forest is good. The deforestation, because that's one thing that's happening in the Dominican, is that they are getting more and more people on board for fair trade. I think a lot of the deforestation is happening in African countries. But where we were in the Dominican, there was a lot of trees, although still a lot of drought.
The supply of chocolate should be pretty good for a
If we keep supporting fair trade.
Any more questions? Not seeing any. Thank you very much, Bev.
Thank you.
Great presentation.
Thanks. Did I do 15?
Okay, we have a, go ahead, Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Walsh. I move that council thank the delegation from the Fair Trade Committee for attending and presenting to council. Thank you.
There's also an ask in the letter that attached. I was just wondering if you want to add that to it, or?
I think that's the second.
Okay, we'll make it as a second motion. Oh, it's all one, okay. It's a PMP. So, yeah. Okay, so we'll accept this motion, then we can entertain a second motion to refer to council. All in favor? Okay. Would you like to make the second motion for $1,500? To refer to council for consideration?
Yeah, I can do that. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Walsh. I move that we refer the request for $1,500 to the Fair Trade Committee to the next upcoming council meeting. Future council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, next delegation is Olds Minor Lacrosse Association. Greg Thompson will be presenting.
Point of information, if I may.
Yes.
They let me know that Greg is actually the vice president and that it's Joe Barrett. Yep. Barrett is actually the president and he'll be speaking.
Okay. Congratulations on your positions.
So get that silver button. Oh,
Yep, got it. And we didn't bring any chocolate. Sorry for we didn't get the heads up on that. So, thank you for the invitation to be here, though, just to give some information about Olds Minor Lacrosse. A lot of people don't know too much about it. Myself, until my kids got involved, that's kind of how I got to know more about it and to get involved with the association. I'm Greg Thompson. I'm the vice president of Olds Minor Lacrosse, and this is Joe Barrett. He is the acting president. So to begin with, just a quick little bit of history on lacrosse itself, or the sport of lacrosse. So it predates basically the Europeans' arrival on the continent. It is one of the oldest team sports in North America, with evidence that it originated in what is now Canada as early as the 17th century. So it's been around a very long time. Traditional lacrosse games back then were major events that could last several days, with as many as 100 to 1,000 people involved from opposing villages or tribes. The games themselves were played in open plains between two villages, and the goals could range anywhere from half a kilometer to up to 10 kilometers apart. It later became known as lacrosse, and some say this is due to the fact that the curved netted stick reminded the Jesuits of the bishop's cross. I don't know if they know that for sure, but that is the common belief. During the 1860s is when lacrosse became known as Canada's national summer game, as it still is today. And by the middle of 1930, lacrosse had kind of transformed from field lacrosse, which is still played in Canada, to the indoor arena box lacrosse, which is what we host at Olds Minor Lacrosse. Lacrosse is the fastest growing sport in Canada, and every corner of the country, all the way up into the far north, and there's a great interest in the sport itself. So just introduction to lacrosse in Olds. We were established in 2002, so this is our 21st season in Olds. 2002 saw Olds host its first minor and junior teams, joining the Central Alberta Lacrosse League and the Alberta Lacrosse Association. Our league games are hosted around Central Alberta, so Innisfail, Carstairs, Sylvan Lake, Red Deer, Black Falls, Lacombe, there should be a B in there, Panoka, and Stettler. We historically average around 90 kids a year. There's 2 junior teams, the Stingers and the Mavericks, as well as a senior team that used to be part of our association but have since left the community for kind of various reasons. Registration numbers did suffer quite a bit, like everything as a result of COVID-19. We saw our numbers drop quite a bit just in the immediate aftermath of that. But however, 2023 we saw a 85% growth in our registration numbers. We went from 59 players last year to 109 this year. So lots of positives there, and obviously some challenges as well. This year we're actually fielding 2 teams in both the U9 and the U11, so this is the first time in a number of years where we've had 2 teams in those age brackets. But we were unable to field a U17 team just because the numbers seem to suffer a little bit more in those higher age groups as a result of the COVID shutdowns. But with those stronger numbers in the lower age groups, it looks pretty positive going forward. As an association, our goals and values, so our number 1 is just to keep lacrosse affordable so that every child can play. Lacrosse itself, our fees are usually half that of hockey, so it's quite affordable, and they can use their hockey equipment, so that keeps the cost low. You can use the same equipment that they're using in hockey for lacrosse, and there's typically a lot of that equipment around. Another goal is to promote the benefit of multi-sport development in young athletes. Olds is kind of a hockey-centric town, so we're trying to promote and trying to get kids involved in more sports. There's a lot of studies that correlate early specialization with a higher likelihood of burnout, injury, dropout from the sport. So we're trying to get as many kids involved as we can to get that more well-rounded athlete and hopefully keep them in the sport for longer. The other goals, we want each and every person involved in Olds Minor Lacrosse to enjoy themselves and to reach their goals of success, fun, and fair play. Set an example of fairness and sportsmanship in all our dealings with teammates, competitors, official coaches, and officials. And we aim to represent our community in a positive light and compete with the larger centers. So we've got a lot of tournaments where we're competing against the city teams, and we've done quite well this year, especially with our younger age groups. We have an ultimate goal of just greater involvement with the junior lacrosse teams and reuniting them all under one association down the road here to try and bring everybody back together again. Our main challenges here in Olds are our box lacrosse season runs typically from April to the end of June. So our floor time in late March and early April is very difficult to get right now as we kind of get kids ready for the season. We really have no opportunities to provide off-season development just due to dry floor in the winter months. We don't have a lot of places that we can play when the ice is in, essentially, at the rink. Also, we're seeing conflicts for space with spring hockey and lacrosse are kind of coming to a head. We're seeing there's a lot of pressure for spring hockey in Olds, and we see down the road that we're going to have some conflicts with that. Floor time is going to be more of an issue down the road here. Also, floor costs are also obviously increasing, like the costs and everything are going up, so our registration fees are going to start to climb a little bit in the next couple of years as we play a little bit of catch up with some of that. Another challenge we have at the rink itself, just equipment storage facilities are a little bit limited functionality. We've kind of got a closet under the stairs that is not ideal, but we make do with what we have right now. So opportunities right now, as we said before, numbers and the popularity of sport are increasing, so we're seeing a big uptick in interest in the community, which is good. We work hard to accommodate athletes who are in multiple sports for that reason, to try to get them involved. So we've been taking kind of larger rosters than we would typically, knowing that we might be missing kids for spring hockey events on certain weekends, just to basically allow them to still participate as much as possible. Our sponsorships this year with local businesses has been very positive. So we've been typically, when we reach out looking for fundraising, we've been able to get that with a lot of the businesses in town and elsewhere. So that's been good.
This is the first year that we've actually gone out and asked for sponsors. And we've actually got a fairly good comeback on it, so which is surprising.
Yeah, and that push for that sponsorship again is just to keep that registration fees as low as possible so we can keep as many kids playing as we can. The other opportunities, I guess, for the town itself is between the 7 teams within the association. We'll host close to 40 home games each season, so that obviously brings a lot of people into the community for those games and those days. We get a lot of fans that follow the kids around to come watch the games. Our ultimate goal is to grow the sport of lacrosse in Olds with the plans of hopefully hosting some tournaments and camps in our home facility down the road here. One of the things we're kind of looking forward to is that new ice surface in Centennial Park is maybe looking at doing some evening games or something like that, or something outside would be kind of fun to do with some of the kids. So getting access to that as an option maybe down the road would be something we'd like to talk about. And just kind of in conclusion, our biggest concern, I guess, as an association going forward is the availability of floor time, just because, like we say, we see that conflict coming to a head. Just the town's getting bigger and bigger, and that ice time versus dry floor is definitely butting heads a little bit. And we just see, as I'm sure you've probably heard from a number of different associations, just the growing need between lacrosse, soccer, baseball, of some kind of indoor facility that all these kids can work at in the off season. But yeah, Olds Minor Lacrosse, we've got a 21-year history within the community, but we definitely want to stay within the community indefinitely, because that's we are old Stingers, so that's our goal is to stay here and be a part of the community.
Our biggest thing was coming here today is to just inform you of our association. We were informed that floor rates were going up to $75. Right now we're at 50. We're a little concerned about that. I've reached out to other communities where we play at, and their fees for floor range from about just under $50 to $60. Sylvan Lake, they're at $55, and they do a 3% floor rate raise every year. We're coming in here saying that $75 is, we understand the rates need to go up, but we feel $75 is right now too much. We'd like to see a slower incline in that, and also possible of splitting the floor rates of the main floor and the auxiliary floor, due to the auxiliary floor is smaller and has no spectator space in there.
That's the end of your presentation, is what you're saying?
Yes, yeah.
Thank you, Joe. Does council have any questions of this team? Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Walsh, and through you to Greg and Joe. Thanks for the presentation. And I do have, I think, a couple of questions, but I'll start with one. So, like you talked about the 40 games over 7 teams, and that's great. But can you help educate me a little bit on what lacrosse looks like? I'm very familiar with baseball, soccer, and hockey, and there's zones, and there's play downs, and there's provincials and everything. I'm really high and big on sport tourism, bringing people here not just for a 3-hour window, but for a weekend window, hotel stays, restaurant meals, business and everything else.
Yep.
Does lacrosse offer that? Are you guys looking to bid on those sort of things? And then tied in with that, I noticed like Innisfil this year, I think that they host their festival, an all-day festival. I'm not sure how tied in we are to that. They host a tournament. Those are some of the things I'm looking to get an idea from you guys as to where you're at and how you're going to grow this sport.
Yes, that is definitely what we are looking at. Innisfil does have their tournament. They've been doing it for quite a few, 14 years, I believe. I've been on the board here for the last 4 years, and it's something that I definitely want to bring to this community, is us being able to host a tournament. I am working with our association and trying to figure out something in that aspect that we can do and host a tournament. It has to be approved by Alberta Lacrosse Association. So we're in works with them. We are working at that. We're trying to find an age group where we can do, whether we want to do across the board, across all teams, or if we just want to do an individual, like our U9s or our U11s or 15s, do one group at a time. We're just not sure there. The biggest issue is trying to find the floor. Every time we look at something there, we're always getting pushed out of the arena because there's always something else that wants to take over the floor. We get pushed out because the cadets need the floor. We get pushed out because, this year because the hockey camps are in there. Last year we got pushed out because you had your curling bonspiel here. It always feels like we're the ones getting pushed out of the arena for something else. So it's hard for us to bring something to the arena or to this town when feel like we're always getting pushed out. We were even asked one night if we would be even willing to move to Didsbury. I mean, very hard that it came from this office to ask to be moved. And then again, saying that now we're going to hit you with a $75 floor rate. So we are trying to do something. We are trying to bring something to this community. But in the hindsight, every time we're trying to do something, we're getting pushed back.
I think in future years too, we have the option of putting our name in if we want to host provincials too. Every year, a certain different town will kind of host the provincials, so.
So there is a provincial.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure, yeah. From U13 and up, can go to provincials if they win their division, so,
And Olds has hosted them years ago.
yeah. Yeah, it's definitely something we'd like to do.
Councillor Ryan, you have a question.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Walsh. I have a question with regards to the other teams that you would have in town. So you say here on your charting that you field two teams that are both under 9, and then you've got the under 11 age groups. Do you have like individual teams then and some of the other age groups, or like which other age groups are we
Our
covering?
age group starts from age 5 and goes up to 16. So we have a U7, a U9, U11, U13, U15, and U17, with about a maximum of 18 players per team. And other than our U7s, because this year I actually had a 3-year-old playing. So we usually have about 10 kids for that age group, and they just play half a court, 3-on-3, no goalie, and they have a blast.
Yeah, just fun.
Yep, just fun.
So yeah, this year we're a U7 team, 2 U9s, 2 U11s, 1 large U13, U15, and then unfortunately no U17 for this season, but next year we're hoping to
We're still
have
building on
U17
the
again.
older kids, yep.
It was a tie. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Walsh, and through you. It's been a while since I've been to a lacrosse game, I will admit, here in Olds. What's the male-female split as far as your registration numbers when you're at about 109? And where are you drawing these players from? And again, can you tell me how you're going to grow the sport? Like what activities, or what's the plan to build momentum in the community?
It seems to vary between our teams, like, and the age groups. There's anywhere from, 2 or 3 girls per team to, I think the U15s have 4 girls. So it varies a little bit. But as far as, pushing the sport, we're trying to get in front of kids wherever we can to let them know about it and try to get them involved. We did a try at night before the season started where we invited people, and we did it in one in Sundre and one in, where was the second one?
Here.
Yeah, in Olds, where we just invited kids that, come throw the ball around, learn a little bit about the sport, and just get familiar with it to try and hopefully get some more registrations that way.
Most of our kids are from Olds area. We get a lot from the Sundre area. We kind of pull from a little bit from the Didsbury area, as Didsbury has moved to Carstairs, so we do get a couple kids that are on the northern side of Didsbury. We pull some kids from the south side of Bowden, and then we also grab from the Torrington and Three Hills area. As due to COVID, basically it shut down the Three Hills team. So now we're kind of grabbing from kids from that area as well.
Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Walsh, but my question was answered. Thanks.
Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Walsh, and sorry, I may have missed this when I was writing my question down. So when you talk about your involvement and you're drawing from other surrounding communities to Olds here, what do you find, how big of an area are you encompassing, though, when you go to play these games? Are you finding that it's a strong presence in other communities that you're going to?
Yeah, I mean, we, like our central zone called CALD, which is Central Alberta Lacrosse, we have teams in Crossfield, here in Olds, Innisfil, Sylvan Lake, Red Deer, kind of a combined team from Lakolka and Ponoka. They've kind of combined. Stettler, and probably starting next year we'll have a team from Hannah. So that is our central there. Our goal is to kind of get as many kids in so we can have that double teams of each group, and we do a lot of tournaments. We do Calgary, Edmonton, Medicine Hat. Our kids have been played and did really good. This weekend we were in Fort Saskatchewan, and our U9 brought home gold. And same with some of our other teams down in Medicine Hat and Calgary have brought in medals.
That's very encouraging. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I believe our U9s have taken gold in every tournament they've been in this year between the two teams. So we've been kind of sweeping all the city teams, which is really nice to see for putting our name out there for sure.
Not seeing any more questions. Thank you very much for your presentation. Very informative. Thank you. So we're moving, Councillor Ryan, you will make a motion?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Walsh. I move the council thank the delegation from the Olds Minor Lacrosse Association for attending and presenting to council.
Thank you. All in favor? That motion is carried. So I'm going to call a 5-minute recess bio break for it's so back in 5. 2:25. Thank you. Welcome, Sandra, and we'll look forward to your fourth quarter report, or quarterly report.
Oh, all right, there we go. Okay. All right. Okay, to get started, first and foremost, I thought we'd start with the Rural Renewal Stream. It's our new program that we're now participating in with the Government of Alberta and Innisfail. So the last time we met, I think we were just starting down the path of forming that partnership with Innisfail. So now we have been very successful in getting this program up on the website, and we've semi-automated the process. So now all the information is in clear language, services, resources, and everything is now available online, and people can fill in the application form right on the website. So that has created some efficiencies for us. And so to date, we have 8 application submissions. 7 of those have now been approved. 1 is now pending. And those have also been approved, we just found out today, through the federal program. So they've all been endorsed, all 7 employees. So that's great news. Some of the future opportunity here that we could look at is building a job board. So this is something that continues to come forward. We have students and people calling to find out who are the employers that are looking for people. So ultimately, we're told to send them back to the typical job sites like Indeed and so forth. But there could be an opportunity here to build some sort of a connection in the back end. So why do I see value in this? Old college students, in my perspective, are those that we really want to place first into positions before we look external. And our ability to be able to sort of tie in Olds College Job Board with what we're doing in this web page, there could be a lot of synergies and efficiencies created in that. So these are some discussions we're going to start having over the coming weeks. Really, I'm going to be meeting with someone from the college next week, one to talk about a job fair, but also looking at can we sort of integrate these, because they've already built it, they've spent a fair amount of money on their job board, so there could be some avenues to tie in the 2 sites. Okay. And as per the last presentation, we did 22 social media posts this week. We're a little lower than the last time simply because we were focusing on getting the framework of the website built and launched. So here are some of the areas that we focused on. In particular, 3 businesses we profiled last quarter, which was Cobb's Fine Meats, which was the highest post of all, Little Caesars, and Therapy Decor. Okay. In addition to that, available land and property sales we have promoted. The one there for the Olds Fire Hall. Now, whether or not we had anything to do with this, I don't know, but we redid. This is the 2nd post we've put online in regards to the fire hall. And on May 29th, we posted that, and since then, we've had 3 inquiries. So one sounds of keen interest. The land and property page on the website, that is still under construction. We are working around some legalities because we are going to be uploading confidential information on people in the website, so we have to get some things framed up around that. So it's still a bit of a work in progress. I should also mention, while Beverly's here, we over the weekend posted our first blog. And we chose to do the Cocoa Tree Bake Shop and Fair Trade as that blog post, and actually it was the best post we've had so far, with 2,400 post engagements. 672 people actually clicked in and drove them to our website, and overall we reached over just about 7,000 people on this blog post. So you know, I think it's a mix of fair trade and cocoa tree of interest, and is hopefully Invest Medicine Hat and some of the good stuff we're doing. So we're raising a lot of interest there. Sorry. What? Oh, sorry. Invest Olds. Okay, and then the next one. brand awareness. So here's just some social media information for you for the last quarter. You'll note it says 815 fans and followers. Our number is actually 1,725 because we actually have 2 LinkedIn pages. So, but Hootsuite tracks just the 2. So there's 1,725 followers that we have, and we averaged around 12,000 views in the last quarter. As well with that, what we're looking at now is profiling who are our followers, what industries are they from. So we've spent a fair amount of time trying to invite new followers from various industry associations and what have you, to ensure that we are eventually going to get to a place where we have specific industries that are following us, for example, on LinkedIn. You can't do that on Facebook, but on LinkedIn you definitely can. Okay. All right, and then Economic Development Week, of course, that was really a success at the end of the day. We've had a lot of interest from international workers and employers looking to partake in the program, checking out the website, so the feedback has been good. And as well, it also helped build our partnership and collaboration with the college going forward. So 2 things came out of that. As soon as the event was over, I followed up with Peter to talk about what are the next steps, what types of action can we take from this. And what came out of it was, 1, talking about doing a job fair where we can actually connect local employers to local job seekers. And then also the development of a workforce development strategy. So we're going to have 2 people from the college that will participate in moving some of these action projects forward. Okay. And then, as in the past, a little overview of where we are with business retention and expansion engagements. So these are local business engagements. So this month, you'll see that number is quite a bit higher than it was last month. And the reason for that is the RRS program for the international workers. So workforce development coming in at 27, land and property requirements, and then marketing was the other big one. Now that we're getting out there on social media, there's a lot more interest in how do we get marketed as a business. Okay. And then, of course, this is the same slide as before, the economic strategy. Just as a reminder, there's 2 phases within this. This year, we are moving on phase 1, which is the ecosystem and building our economic foundation. Okay. All right, now this slide looks a little different than it did in the last quarter. So workforce development is the other added piece that you see there on the right. There's no question that workforce development is a priority of many municipalities across Alberta and the country. So workforce development is something that we want to be able to potentially integrate into the Business Retention Expansion Survey. Typically, these are 2 large initiatives that happen separately, but if we're going out to meet with business anyway, it makes good sense to tie them together. Also, since the last time we met, we have been able to secure $10,000 from Mountain View County to help us move this forward. And also, I've already started forming the workforce development team, of which I think we have now 7 people confirmed, so I have 2 more to go. Funding on that piece is already available, so it's just a matter of getting the application in, so I have that sitting on my desk right now to finalize. And then funding for the business retention expansion piece will be a separate program that is not yet open. Okay. All right, and business attractions. So some of the active leads from last time, the AAIP Immigrant Entrepreneur Program. Last quarter, we served 18. Of those, there are 3 that are currently active and 1 landed. And you all met her at the Economic Development Week event. That was Carolyn. So she's in the community already operating. We are waiting on 1 more. David was also there. I kind of briefly introduced the audience to David. So he's doing a solar project. So we're just waiting for his final papers. And then there are two others that I've met with actually in the last 8 weeks. One, we have drafted the community letter of support, so that will be going forward to CAO here this week. And one more that was of keen interest. So both had very good business plans, so those will be coming forward for potential approval. Okay. And then other meetings and events. So as before, these are the folks that I have met with in the last quarter, locally, regionally, provincially, and or internationally. Business View magazine, obviously, being the international point of contact there. And I think that's it. Yeah.
Thank you, Sandra. Does council have any questions of Sandra? Well, oh, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Walsh, and through you to Sandra. Thanks for the presentation. Just, I may have blanked out for a moment there on page 92, when you say March to May resource preparation 10K. Can you remind me what the resource preparation, what is that looking like?
Yeah,
What is
that's
that?
essentially looking for, capital and people that are willing to participate on advancing this item forward. So to date, we have $10,000 from Mountain View County.
Okay.
And I should, and also noted that the Labor Market Partnership Grant Program is another one that we'll be able to apply for the workforce development strategy.
Okay.
Councillor Cummings.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. The event that we had at the cottage, you know where my brain is today, at the college. I got to start off by saying it was an excellent event. I like the idea that when one presenter was up there talking, the other presenters that were there that weren't engaged in that particular session were listening very attentively. And at the end of the day, when I sat around and chatted with a few of them, they were very interested in connecting with each other. I think that's a big first step in getting all of these people, hey, you exist.
Yeah.
That's a great first step. And I spoke with a few, I've spoken to some since, and everybody came out of that meeting with a positive attitude that Olds is doing something and the college is doing something. And I think we all had the exact same concerns, and hopefully they feel better that the town has recognized those. As CAO Williams gave his presentation, they're like, oh, well, that's pretty pointed, because it was their concerns all the way through. Those type of events seem to be doing very well. And I just want to go back here, because you said that the college, you were talking to the college, they want to do a job fair event at the college, like, or just somewhere where the college students can participate, looking for work in Olds with local businesses and stuff like that. We do have a locally owned job, like Indeed, I don't know what you'd call those facilities, called Mountain View Careers.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you've been aware of them or in touch with them. They're mostly online.
Okay.
But they focus specifically on jobs in our area.
Right.
So there are a couple of things. There's also several Facebook page groups for employment opportunities just in our region and our area. So there are resources out there for local job stuff, trying to pull them all together, though. I think that's a great idea. I look forward to hearing what it's going to be. I'll send my kids.
Yeah, and with that, it's really about helping the community know that there's a labor pool that's accessible here every year. And, what skills are you looking for? Here's the skills that are coming out of the college. And how do we connect those dots? So it's, online is awesome. And I was aware of that site. But being able to physically say, like, here are students, that's been the missing piece. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Walsh, and again, through you to the EDO. When James Carpenter was before council about a month ago, he kind of teased us and planted a few seeds relative to some fantastic opportunities that are coming up through the summer. Are you able to share any further info on what those ED-type opportunities look like, or is that still all in the formative stage?
Yeah. So the event, it's an event that he's talking about. So one of the consultants that is planning that event was actually at our Economic Development Week event. His name is Jag. And essentially what he is doing is bringing 30 to 50 delegates from India to our specific communities, which are Old, Sundre, Didsbury, and I believe Bowden, maybe Innisfail. Anyway, so they will be here 3 to 4 days. It was flagged for August, but it's now mid-September. I think the 13th is what we're tentatively flagging Olds for, 13th, 14th. But essentially, I'm just kind of waiting to find out what exactly they're looking at from us. So, you know, I'm assuming it's doing a presentation on our community and why they should invest here, which is great. And then my questions back will be qualifying these investors, right? So hopefully something comes out of it. So we'll wait and see.
Supplementary? Or just a
No.
new question? Go ahead.
A new
Councillor
question. Thank you for the latitude. Can you talk a little bit about the survey that's now coming out, I guess, I don't know, late summer, fall? Remind me, that's a survey for existing businesses here in Olds, or what's
Yeah.
the reach for that?
Yes, it's for local businesses. I mean, in discussions with Mountain View County, I don't know if they'll be looking for us to survey, you know, maybe the agriculture industry in the county. That will all flush out once we bring people to the table. But ultimately, what you have right now is an extensive survey that can take anywhere, depending on how you answer the questions, can take anywhere from 25 to 45 minutes to complete. But it is very extensive in that it gives us information on how people feel about the quality of life in Olds. How do they feel about infrastructure? How do they feel about services when they go into our restaurants, our retail stores? Do they feel good about, you know, how they're treated and whatnot? It's something that minor. Parking is something that often comes up. Anything even around regulation. So there's a number of sections within this survey that covers an extensive area of information that allows us to identify issues.
Thank you. And not a question, just a comment. So that's great. I'm very encouraged by that, and I'll just share, as I have, I think, amongst this group before, a comment. I'm the council's rep on the Olds Chamber of Commerce, and I know one of the themes coming from the chamber is, and a lot of these initiatives are great and welcomed in terms of attracting investment and bringing new investment to the community, but a very common theme amongst the existing businesses is support for the existing businesses. So hopefully once the survey is out, and people will take the time, whether it's 20 minutes or 40 minutes, because I think it will give us a good indicator then of what does the local people, the local entrepreneurs and businesses now need to help them be successful or more successful. So
Yeah, exactly.
look forward to that.
Yeah.
Not seeing any more questions. Thank you, Sandra, for a good presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, motion to adopt Sandra's presentation. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Dahl. I make the motion that council thank the Economic Development Officer for the quarterly report and update.
All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you very much. So moving on, our last report through our CEO and Director Annual. Give it over to you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Walsh. Director Andrew is with us today to lead us through this report on playground zones and speed adjustments. Just to refresh some memories for council and those watching. Last fall, there was a public survey, one of our most well responded to, several hundred responses in fact, about speed reductions in Olds. The overall sentiment of a base reduction from the 50 kilometer per hour limit currently in place was soundly rejected. One item on that survey that was just as much in support was switching the current school zones to more full-time playground zones. In correspondence between myself and council prior to this meeting, I did mention that our current bylaw has dual authority mixed in on how such reductions or changes in speed are approved, with the CAO and council both having authority to do as such. Still, we felt it prudent to bring it forward to council, just for information and input if required. Also in the communication, I mentioned that we didn't want to have a blanket approach to this. I have to massage that a bit. Full-time, as originally intended, we thought it was going to be, in place 24/7. What you'll see in front of you is the same areas, slightly expanded in some cases, going to a playground zone, but basically during daylight hours, summer daylight hours for the full year. We thought that was a compromise that made more sense, and Director Andrew will speak to that. The second piece, Uptown Olds. You recall April Jemiah's presentation late last year, for safety purposes, requesting, based on behalf of the Uptown Olds Association, a reduction in the speed limit on 50th Avenue. Again, massaged a little bit. We expanded that just for signage placement issues, because Fortis is not a big fan of us putting speed signs on their light posts. So that's a little bit expanded to the western part of Uptown as well, and recommending a 30-kilometer reduction to 30 kilometer per hour in that Uptown zone, based on the association's concerns and request. But with that, I'll turn it over to Director Andrew to walk us through the ins and outs of this.
Thank you, CAO Williams, through to the chair. So yes, as was previously mentioned in our citizen survey and previous presentations at council, we discussed the benefits of changing our current school zones to playground zones, where there is decreased confusion of motorists. Though during daylight operating hours, these speed zones would be in effect. We brought this as a concern due to the situation where many of the playgrounds that are attached to the schools are frequently used outside of school days and during the daytime hours, and we were not seeing a reduction in speed of motorists passing those locations. The prime example, the first picture that you see, was the zone by Holy Trinity School, and that one was one area that is frequently, the road is crossed for kids to get to that playground area. So that was a big area of concern that was raised to us. One of the proposed changes in this that we have brought is that we would like to extend the current zone from the existing boundary where you see the blue dots was the start and finish, and the green. So we have a playground zone already established on Briegel Road, which is the standalone playground. Because of the signage and the small area, we are proposing that we would incorporate the entire second slide, which is from the red dots on the left side all the way to the red dots below. So Briegel Road and the road that Holy Trinity is on, 57th, would be all inclusive as a playground zone, just so that there's not a speed up area that's only a couple hundred yards long in the middle of that. The zones do not include the cul-de-sacs. They would be exempt from that. It would just be the main roadway. So that's what's being proposed. The other piece, the next zones, again, when we look at Deer Meadows School, the current is, as you see there, where the dots are, is the start and finish of that zone. And we would propose that we would keep that the same. The only piece that is being verified is the current dots that are in the Balsam Crescent area. That would need to extend right to the pathway that goes through from 57th Avenue through Balsam Crescent into the school. That's where we would propose that change to occur. It's not clearly identified on that map, but we're only talking a few feet as opposed to hundreds of yards, if you will. We feel that that would be a strong safety suggestion, again, by having that zone in place year-round, again, because many kids travel to and from that facility even outside of school days. Horizon and Cole Elementary, again, we are proposing this change. Again, this is a smaller street that doesn't see the amount of through traffic that the other zones would normally see, but we also do feel that it is prudent to make sure that it is in place. Because of the accessible playground on the Horizon School site, you do have people with mobility issues that are crossing the street. That has been witnessed by residents and our enforcement officers. And so we would like to encourage that this become a playground zone as well. And the only change or modification that wouldn't be completely captured from the previous is right there on that street where it's one way, and that road work was done when the street improvement was done on 53rd Street 2 years ago, and that used to be blocked off, and now it is open up for northbound traffic only. So we want to incorporate that into the zone as well, which would be similar to the other two side streets. And then lastly, the new one is, or the area to change would be the proposed uptown. So we did talk previously about a playground zone being included on Centennial Park. So that is new on 54th Street at the bottom of the page, and it would start at the crosswalk, which is a primary feeder for the elementary school for pedestrian traffic for kids. So we would like to start the playground zone there, and it would proceed all the way east on 54th, and it would stop at essentially the train tracks and then proceed north on 50th. And then when CIO Williams mentioned about expanding the speed zone 1 block further west, what that does is when we looked at the logistics of implementing signage, because whenever you start or finish a speed reduction zone, you do have to clearly post that you're into a new zone with the speed associated. And logistically, it's not plausible for us to be able to do that on 50th alone. So by moving it 1 block further west, that gives us the real estate, if you will, to place those signs appropriately. We also feel that it incorporates all of the uptown with angle parking and the traffic that's there. That the concern raised was that when people are trying to cross the streets from parked areas where they come out from between parked cars, I think it correlates better with the traffic management plan that we'd like to see in the downtown area, and it also provides greater safety for occupants and motorists that are potentially not necessarily paying attention when they're going about their business because of the fantastic sales and prime commercial opportunities in the downtown core. So I believe with that, that's all I have, unless there's questions.
Any questions? Councillor Ryan?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Walsh. And I think more of a comment, and that is, I like the fact that we've extended past the Centennial Park across in front of the ORE, because there is a lot of traffic going back and forth across that road, pedestrian traffic, especially when they're having events. I always see a lot of people crossing over there. So I appreciate that. But I was just wondering, I guess my question would be, have we talked to ORE with regards to that extension as well? And found out what they feel about that?
Yes, so I believe that they're in favor of traffic calming measures. It has been identified that when they have events that require them to cross over from their south lot to the racetrack lot, they have to have pedestrian or traffic people there. And so it is one of those things that it's difficult because it's a private entity, and it's usually volunteers or staff members that they contract to come in, and they struggle with getting people to slow down and give the courtesy to the pedestrians there that do have the right of way in those, because they are marked crosswalks. So I believe that this definitely augments and makes things a little easier for them, for sure.
Councillor Cummings?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just wanted to state I am in full support of changing our school zones into playground zones simply for the consistency factor. I find it frustrating when you drive through one street and the rules are this, and then you drive to another school and the rules are that. And it's confusing, especially for people who didn't grow up learning that. It's like, turn left at the old Texaco station that hasn't been there for 300 years, I find it challenging. So I'm all for the whole consistency issue. I'm tossing a coin here about the speed changes in Uptown. I've asked numerous times of everyone in the Protective Services Department if we actually have an issue with traffic concerns of safety, and I keep getting back, no, we don't. There's a lot of anecdotal stories of near misses, but there is no data showing that there is a concern for safety in driver or pedestrian instances. I would feel, I'm going to go for it here simply because I back out of those angle parking spots a lot, and a lot of people don't pay attention to that. Bad driving sometimes needs to be moderated through rule changes. I'm not a big fan of that, but I get it. So I'd like to see how it goes. And I understand that there is some future plans to change some more parking on the sides or on the streets to more angle parking from what I've heard, which will just create a bigger problem there altogether. So just wanted to make those two comments before we move forward.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Walsh, and through you to Director Andrew. Just a question. We know that there's been a group of concerned citizens along Winter Drive that have, I believe it's Winter Drive, and heading in towards Brygle and so on, and then the Trinity School. So if I draw your, I'm referring now to page 97, I think, of the agenda. Was there any consideration given stretching that playground zone to incorporate some or part of Winter Drive, given the concerns expressed there by citizen or citizens?
Very valid question. Winter Drive does continue to be an area of concern for us to look at what a plausible solution to the concerns raised are. Consideration wasn't given to changing it to a playground at this point because it does not meet the demographics laid out by Alberta Transportation as far as what would constitute a playground zone. I know in citizens' concerns that they'd raised the possibility of maybe adding some kind of playground equipment or a device into the park on right on Winter Drive that would actually then change that rule. That is certainly something that could be investigated as a possible solution. We have asked, and we've been seeing some increased monitoring and patrol through our either municipal enforcement and or the RCMP, and to date we have not actually had any tickets written or issued on that for speed. Now again, that doesn't say that there's no problem there, it just means that the problem wasn't there when it was witnessed, and that is a struggle with enforcement in any way, shape, or form, is that you have to be at the right place at the right time. So there were some citizen signs that were placed up in the front yards over there asking people to slow down, and I think that that was an excellent initiative that was undertaken by the residents. And I haven't heard or seen of any specific new cases as of late. It doesn't mean that they're not happening, but we are still looking to come up with a solution for that location, in short.
Go ahead, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, and thank you, Director, for that response. And just a comment, I support the changes outlined, but as with anything, I'd be very interested to see around enforcement then and compliance, which will be an entirely different discussion for a different day. So, thank you.
Councillor Blatz, did I miss you?
That's okay. I was going to make a comment in regards to enforcement and compliance, but Councillor Wilson has done so, so that's no need for my comments.
Okay, I have a couple comments. You know, we have 3 train crossings in town, 54th, 50th, and 27th Avenue. 8-9 years ago, the sheriffs and RCMP did a comprehensive review of playgrounds and school zones in town, and we got rid of the one on 27th because it was a fenced playground. So there are 3 ways that traffic management goes. It's engineered, enforcement, and education. I'm thinking that when we have 50th and 54th slowdowns, I mean, if you travel through town 1 o'clock in the morning, have to slow down to 30 just to go down these main streets. It doesn't make a lot of sense. The timing is wrong. So I don't support 54th and 50th. And Councillor Cummings is right about backing out of these stalls. I know 2 seniors who wouldn't park downtown because they have to. They can't see past a pickup, so it's risky. So I wouldn't advocate parallel, angle parking on 50th ever. But those are some of my concerns looking at this. Also the time, 9 o'clock. It's our predecessors kind of had more common sense when they target dusk. Wintertime, that's a 4-hour difference when we were living in dark and nobody's playing in these playgrounds. And even in summertime, 9 o'clock, it's almost 11. Kids, you talk to citizens on patrol, kids are out late. So I think we need to rethink the time also. It just doesn't work for me. But those are my comments. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Walsh, and you made a good point there, and I think the dawn to dusk, I know there are some playground zones that do have that. In the city where I used to live, I know that there was a playground zone that said dawn to dusk. So it might be something that you wanted to look into, because how many kids are playing in the middle of the winter time in the playground zone at 8 o'clock at night? Probably nobody. But there could be some kids who are skating in some of our little parks. But it's something to certainly look into. And with downtown, I'm not really sure. I've kind of 50-50 on the downtown area as well, because I don't know. I mean, I drive downtown quite a lot, and I don't think I've ever gone above 30 myself. The roads are so narrow once people are parking, especially on some of the ones that went to the angle parking, that you have to be pretty well aware of what people are doing, and so you're not hitting another car or you're not hitting a pedestrian. So I'm kind of like, I don't even know how many people would actually drive 50 on there, because I certainly don't. But something to consider going forward.
Director Andrew.
Yeah, thank you for the comments, and I'll give you a little bit of background. So the chosen time frame was a result of us referencing other communities, and the one thing, it used to be the standard was that it was referenced that playground zones were in effect from 7 a.m. until 1 hour after dark. Yeah. And the problem is enforceability wise, that's a very subjective term. So 1 hour after dark, well, when does that 1 hour start? And so what's happening with municipalities is they are choosing a time. And so 9 o'clock p.m. is kind of the standard of what everybody's going to. And I can appreciate that, yes, in the wintertime, that's very much later. And in the summertime, it's early potentially. And it was trying to find what municipalities are using as the measure is what time would a typical youth be out in a playground. So we're talking the less than 12 years old time that are kind of the prime targets of running out in traffic or whatever. So it may not be perfect, but from a enforcement standpoint, we would like to stick with a time, and we're certainly open to discussion and modification if that was council's choosing, but it is easier for us to have a set time for enforceability is that number. The other comment made about the 30 in the downtown core is you're absolutely correct. I agree with you that most people travel 30, and by changing the speed limit to a posted reduction of 30, what it does is it creates a better tool for enforcement to utilize. And I hate to say it, but common sense isn't necessarily the common trend with some of these pieces where, yes, you would think that's reasonable to drive 30 kilometers downtown. When somebody doesn't drive 30 kilometers an hour downtown, now that becomes the problem, because if they're driving 40 or driving 50, which, yes, under the rule of the law, they're still legally able to do so, and it may not be reasonable. And so these are some of those semantics that we put rules in place that it may not be a forced change for the majority. People will not change their habits. They're not the problem. It's the dealing with the circumstance where somebody is not following the rules, and it gives us a broader ability to actually educate them and create that change. And I do appreciate your background on that, because I do agree with you for sure.
Councillor Ryan?
Thank you, and I just wanted to say good points that you're making there, Director Andrews.
Mayor Dahl?
Well, I just concur with what I'm hearing around the table, especially with Uptown Olds. It doesn't matter, as Councillor Ryan says, I never do over 30 there. My problem is we are never going to change jaywalking on Uptown Olds. And I typically go under 30 because all of a sudden behind an angle parked car, somebody just jots across the street.
Any more questions? Not seeing any. Okay, we are moving on in the agenda. Next one is a closed session. Oh, a motion to adopt, well, not adopt, accept for information, the playground school zone update. Councillor Blatz?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Walsh. I move that we accept the school zones to playground zones information as presented.
Thank you. All in favor? That's carried. Okay, the next session is closed session. No? Number 5. Oh. Policy review update, 5A.
Yes, so the item 5A policy review is coming slightly from the organizational review. One of the recommendations is that council adopt a process to review each policy during its term. The recommendation brought forward by administration that our several dozen policies and eventual growth in an inventory will make that fairly cumbersome. So what's in front of council today for feedback and consideration is a overall synopsis of administration's preference, opinion on our current policy inventory and what we plan to do with that over the next 2.5 years of council's remaining term. As you can see, based on the color coding in the second and third pages, we have 29 policies that were reviewed already by administration, and we are recommending no changes outside of those powers given to us in policy for grammatical and formatting changes. The next, we have 14 policies we plan on bringing forward to council between now and the end of term to consider changes. More of 4 policies that will come forward with a recommendation to rescind for various reasons, and then those council-specific policies, of which there are 7, that we are recommending be brought forward within the first year of a new council term for council consideration. Some of those are already preordained, given that the compensation for councilors, for example, is done with a public committee in place. But I think it still captures the intention. But happy to take any feedback, questions, or input on this proposal. And we'll just add that should a policy that's either due to be brought forward or not brought forward is brought to a council meeting by any councillor and asked to be brought forward, this schedule can change, whether it be a notice of motion for an upcoming meeting, or if council decides that situations have changed. But with that, that's all I have.
Councillor Ryan, you have questions?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Walsh. I do have I guess, not necessarily a question, but more of a comment, and that is, in going through the policies, all of the policies in the last council rotation that I was on, it's actually good, even if administration doesn't see any changes, I think it's good for council to have a couple of policies brought forward all the time, just so that we become more familiar, especially after a council is reelected. It's good to bring these policies forward during the terms of council so that they get a chance, even if there is no change, so that they can just have it on the agenda to say, okay, we're bringing this policy and this policy to council just for a review or a familiarity, whatever it is, and just accept it even as for information at that time. But I would, sometimes you get elected and you don't even know what the policy, how many policies there are. I'm just going through one of the boards that I'm on. We just went through a list of our policies. Some of them hadn't been changed since 2006 because nobody brought them forward. The CEO never brought them forward. So if you're not aware, if you don't know what the policies are, I know it's our job to be aware, but you get bogged down in so many things on council and so many other issues that you tend to overlook some of the policies. So it'd be good, even if you're bringing it forward during the 4-year term, just as an informational purpose. But that's just my feeling, and I don't know if you think it might be wasting council's time or not. I don't know.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. All good points. Anybody else have comments? Mayor Dahl?
Thank you. I appreciate the comment from our CEO that these policies can change with a notice of motion. There are some areas that we are going to be working on in the very near future that we've even asked to work on. For example, economic and development. That I can see that changing. So it's a living document, and thank you for sharing that, because there are areas that will probably need some updates.
Not seeing any other comments or questions. A motion to accept this for information. Councillor Cummings.
I move that we accept the policy review quarterly report as presented.
Thank you. All in favor? That's carried. By-election 2023-11 election bylaw. CEO?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So the roughly halfway through the term, thought it was about the right time to bring forward our election bylaw for consideration. We did quite a few amendments, roughly taking it from, I think, a 20-something page document down to what you see before you, 3 or 4 pages. The intent was to make it as little prescriptive as possible, because the Local Authorities Election Act really covers the core basics, then gives us the authority to put in our own details. So if you see few examples in there, such as, well, changing the time of the voting or using automated vote counters. Those are things that you just need to put in your bylaw. We felt the previous bylaw was overly prescriptive, not just for candidates to understand, but also for our ROs and DROs to implement. Marcy did the bulk of the legwork on this, so I'll ask her if she has anything else to add before we open it up to questions or comments. Okay, that's all.
Questions? Councillor Cummings?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Walsh. If I can draw your attention to paragraph 31 and 32. Paragraph 31 is an imperative, it's a rule, and 32 is imperative with a rule that contradict each other. Normally, I would see in legislation, paragraph 31 would be subject to paragraph 32, then it goes every person who would attend, or 32 would have notwithstanding paragraph 31, so that you could have an exception to a rule. And I'm not sure if, because you've used some new words in here, like must instead of shall, but is if basically replacing notwithstanding paragraph 30? To me, it's not enough. It needs to actually say we can contradict Rule 31 by Rule 32. And it seems odd to me not to have one of those two phrases in there to create the ability to break the rule that's posed in paragraph 31. And it's just a grammatical issue, but without it, it really changes the context, and I don't know which one of these two rules to follow, because there's no, like this Rule 31 states you must show this ID. In 32, it says, well, you don't really have to show that ID if you can't. So there has to be something to allow that process to occur, to bypass that rule with either the notwithstanding sentence or the subject to this sentence. Other than that, it's great. And the other one thing I wanted to point out was I'm very happy because I did a lot of research on this particular bylaw. I thought it was interesting. Some of our comparator communities have had, because they don't allow the returning officer to do so much, like this one does, they've had 10, 15 resolutions per election just to a point where you can have a voting station, and then changing a voting station, and then changing a voting station, and that is silly in my mind. So having the electoral officer and the CAO take on more of the administration role of the election seems perfectly normal. Like, the politicians don't run Alberta elections. That's all civil servants make all the decisions about it, except for the day of the election. So I'm happy that that's there. But I would like to see 31 or 32 changed so that we can have some more consistency in the verbiage of rule exceptions.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Legislative clerk.
Thank you, through the chair. Previous, as if you did look at the past bylaw, the identification section was quite lengthy, and we used literally what the provincial government gave us as examples of everything a person could bring. Section 31 and 32 were written specifically, and I actually didn't edit these. Our lawyer produced these and gave these to us. So if we're going to change words, I feel it's clear enough, but I guess I would leave that with the CAO and council. It was literally written by our legal counsel, not by me, so I feel that there's more weight to it than if I wrote it. But I would leave it that with you guys.
Councillor Ryan.
Well, thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Walsh, and through you to either the CEO or to our legislative clerk. The hang-up I have, and I concur with Councillor Cummings on this point, is the word must in 31. It does contradict, well, you must have it, but then if you don't have it, it doesn't make sense to me to have that wording. And so I would suggest to the lawyers, perhaps maybe we could just say shall and then if, so as opposed to must. And I don't know what the rule is from the electoral office with regards to that, but it doesn't make sense to have, you must show this, and then if you don't have that, we'll allow this and this and this. And I understand that they do provide different sources of identifications, but I think it's just, I'm hung up on the word must, I think, in this particular item, number 31. And I think that that's what Councillor Cummings was alluding to as well. Are you all right? No, okay. That wasn't what he was alluding to, but that's what I'm alluding to. Thank you.
Okay, CEO Williams has a comment, then legislative clerk.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you to Councillor Ryan and Councillor Cummings, for the sake of clarity, adding notwithstanding Section 31 to Section 32, I think, would clarify what both of you are getting at. So I think if that makes the rest of the council feel peachy, that's fine with me. So.
Okay. There's no issues, but I do have one question about the malfunction of an automatic voting system. Now, the returning officer gets to decide, but I'm going, is there a backup? Is there, it just...
No, we would count it.
That's what I mean.
The
It's-
returning officer would make the call to count it at that time then, due to the malfunction.
Okay. No, as long as, yeah, it's in the act. Okay.
That's right.
Thank you. Any other questions? A motion to accept this for information with an amendment? Councillor Cummings.
Got to put my mic on there. That council accepted municipal election bylaw 2023-11 as amended and directs the CAO to bring it to a future council meeting.
Thank you. All in favor? That's carried. Okay, moving into closed session. Who gets to stay during this?
Myself and the legislative clerk can stay.
Okay, thank you.
With the BMO Eclipse Visa Infinite card, you can get 5 times the points on more of the things you love.
That means more oat milk lattes, more impromptu late night pizza deliveries, more Sunday brunches, and more green juices. Or maybe less of that.
Get more out of life with the BMO Eclipse Visa Infinite card. Click or tap to apply now and get up to 60,000 points. Terms and conditions apply. Visit bmo.com for details.
I'm all about Saskatchewan ranching country, where native prairie grasslands give way to those bare and beautiful padlands. I want to get in the saddle and live my dreams in the real Wild West. This is powerful skies country, hard work country, resilience country. I know the calluses I'll get here will heal, but the memories are forever. Visit our Living Skies and Badlands, Saskatchewan.
With the BMO Eclipse Visa Infinite card, you can get 5 times the points on more of the things you love.
That means more nights out, more weekend escapes, more living in the moment, and more getting lost.
Make a U-turn.
Or maybe less of that.
Get more out of life with the BMO Eclipse Visa Infinite card. Click or tap to apply now and get up to 60,000 points. Terms and conditions apply. Visit bmo.com for details.
At Panago Pizza, we celebrate the little things people do to earn their za. Like Darius, who called his parents just to say hi. That took patience and free time. What about Esther? She returned her shopping cart and didn't just leave it in the parking lot. That's a hero. And let's not forget Kyle, who emptied the office dishwasher without anyone asking. Looking like management material, Kyle. If you put on your big person pants and got something done, you deserve Panago. You earned that za.
Thank you. We're back in regular session. Horizon report, Councillor Ryan.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Walsh. I move that we accept the report as presented.
Thank you. All in favor? That motion's carried. Is there any objections to adjourning the council meeting at this time? It's 3:58. None? Then we are adjourned. Thank you.